Nick sat up straight. "Mom, look!" Through the break in the 6-foot holly hedge that surrounded the house, Jane could see the old dark blue Corolla that Marlene used sitting in the driveway. Jane parked behind the Corolla, and she and Nick walked up the flagstone path to the front door of the chocolate-brown, chalet-style house. As soon as she unlocked it, Nick burst past her to the family room. The TV roared to life. This was what she had been keeping him from. "Marlene!" Jane called from the foyer. No answer. She hurried upstairs and along the narrow hall to Marlene's room at the end. The door was closed. She knocked, opened the door, and drew in her breath sharply. The room was empty. The bed was made, the lamp and the Hummel figurines on the dresser were neatly arranged, and Marlene's belongings were gone. The jumble of makeup and jewelry on the night table, the ever-present heap of dirty clothes on the floor. Jane opened the closet. It was bare of all but the hangers. She hurried downstairs to the kitchen. If Marlene had written a note, she would have left it there, but the counters were bare. Jane sat on one of the counter stools, trying to control her rage. To leave without a word. Not that Jane wasn't secretly relieved. Marlene was a terrible nanny. Trouble was, she was also the daughter of Jane's oldest friend. Jane had known Ivy Benson, Marlene's mother, since Jane and Ivy were roommates at the University of Detroit 18 years before. It was Ivy who had proposed Marlene as Nick's nanny. That was 2 months ago in August. Tina, who'd taken care of Nick for 3 years, since he was 6, had left suddenly to care for her dying mother. When Jane told Ivy of her predicament, Ivy suggested Marlene. Marlene had graduated from high school the year before. She had been offered a scholarship by a college to study acting, but at the last minute she had changed her mind and refused to go. Instead, she was hanging out with a tough crowd in Detroit, where she and Ivy lived. Jane questioned the wisdom of hiring friends. Moreover, she hadn't seen Marlene in 12 years. On the 2 occasions that Jane had visited Ivy in Detroit, Marlene had been in Fort Lauderdale visiting her father, Ira, whom Ivy had divorced when Marlene was 2. But Ivy begged Jane. Marlene needed this opportunity. Who better to care for Nick than the daughter of his mother's oldest friend? Reluctantly, Jane agreed. And from the day Marlene arrived in New Jersey, Jane knew she'd made a mistake. Marlene was far too self-involved to be charged with the welfare of another person, though it occurred to Jane that if she looked like Marlene, she might be self-involved too. Marlene had grown into an exquisite beauty, with a petite yet voluptuous figure, silky waist-length silver blonde hair, and a delicate patrician face set with startling indigo eyes and a pouting, sensuously downturned mouth. Marlene performed her duties, but without interest or enthusiasm, apparently living for the evenings, when she would go out and return long after Jane and Nick had gone to bed. Jane had decided that Nick deserved better. She would give Marlene a decent trial period, say 3 months, then tell Ivy it just wasn't working out. But now Marlene had solved the problem herself, though to leave without notice was inexcusable. Ivy would have to know. She would still be at the insurance agency where she worked as a secretary. Jane punched out the number, full of self-righteous outrage. Ivy answered on the first ring. "Bassford Insurance, Ivy Benson speaking. How may I help you?" "Ivy, it's Jane." "Jane, hi." Ivy's tone was guarded. "Is everything all right?" "Marlene's gone." "Gone? What do you mean?" Ivy lowered her voice, undoubtedly to avoid being overheard by her cubicle neighbors. "She never picked Nick up at school today. When we got home, she was gone. Took all her stuff. I'm damn disgusted." "Jane, there's gotta be some mistake. Marlene wouldn't just leave. She loved it there. Obviously, she didn't. Did she say anything to you about leaving?" "No." "Well, I guess there's nothing to be done about it. I'll have to find someone new right away, which I don't appreciate, I can tell you. She could have at least given me some notice. I'd have expected that from a stranger. Jane, listen, I'm sure Marlene will call one of us and clear this all up. Have you talked to any of her friends?" "Ivy, Marlene never mentioned any of her friends. She kept her social life completely separate." "What about Zena? She'll know where Marlene is. Maybe Marlene is even with her." "Who the hell is Zena?" "Zena Harmon, Marlene's best friend from here in Detroit. Marlene must have mentioned her." "No." Zena